Hello there guys, Francis Gray here and welcome back to part 2 of the Alien Queen diorama. Okay guys, so if you haven't seen part 1, there'll be a link to that in the description bar below. But basically, in a nutshell, we took a black frame and we cut it into a rectangle and we made that as a base, and then we had some light up features from some clear translucent perspex to work as like an underlight flooring. And then we went ahead and kit bashed like a space station kind of sci-fi floor and wall, and then we added some. Well, we started to add some that black cocoonage that you see in the Alien franchise with just some regular black glue gun sticks. So if you've all caught up, or if you're not really bothered about part 1, please sit back and enjoy, and I'll see you at the end, and hopefully we've got a finished product. So yeah, see you at the end.
Okay guys, going to start this build by hot gluing that Weyland-Yutani Corporation Building Better Worlds logo that we 3D printed in the last video. So that's now hot glued solely in the middle there, so that'll be a nice Easter egg or a nice connection to the movie Aliens. So for this stage I'm going back in with more black glue sticks, and I'm adding more of that alien hive cocoonage that we see in the franchise. The reason why I'm going back over the glue sticks again mainly is because all the backdrop space panels, or the parts that make it look that resemble the Weyland-Yutani Hadley's Hope installation, those are all made of plastic. So with hot glue being hot, or extremely hot, obviously if you just dump a load of it on, it'll overheat and warp the plastic. So you got to add a little bit, leave it to cool, move to another area as you're working, and then once that part has been left to solidify, then you can go back over it again and add like a second or third layer. So you have to build it up in stages basically, but once it's done it really does look good, and it does mimic the alien cocoonage or the alien hive that we see in the franchise. Okay, so you can't have an Alien Queen diorama without having a butt ton of alien eggs. So I went on Thingiverse online and I managed to find this 3D file which was uploaded by a user called Mycha, that's M-Y-C-H-A, and he or she did 2 variants, which is the egg closed and then the egg open. So I decided to download both files, and we're gonna mainly 95% have closed eggs, but there might be 1, maybe 2 of the open variants, just to add a little bit more dramatic flair. So yeah, so let's get printing. Okay, so let's have a closer look at these. Okay, now into the spray booth and giving some matte black as a base coat. So now that those have dried, for the next layer I'm going to go in with a dark green. So this is going to be the undertone to the eggs. So we'll leave this to dry and then we can build up more colours later on. Okay, so for the next part I'm going to go in with a dark brown and I'm going to add a dry brush on the bottom part of the eggs. So this will give a nice contrast from the dark leading up to slightly lighter colours higher up. And next we're going to go in with a lighter brown, and we're going to dry brush the ends for a nice highlight. And next we're going to go in with some soft cream from a tester pot, and we're going to add a dry brush over the various bumps and lumps of all the eggs. So for the next part, we're going to use the same soft cream, and we're going to draw the eye to the top of the eggs by dry brushing a highlight layer over where the eggs open at the top. And next we're going to go in with some medium pink, and we're going to paint the very inside part of the eggs. So this will give that fleshy tone that seems to belong on the inside of the eggs. And for the next part, we're going to go in with some general black acrylic, and we're going to paint the bottom part of the eggs that lead out to connect with the hive. And for the next part, we're going to go back in with some of that soft cream, and we're going to add a highlight pattern to the opening of the eggs. And next we're going to go in with some brown watercolour, and we're going to add a light wash over the pattern that we just painted, and then we're going to gently take some kitchen towel and we're going to mop up the excess. Now we're in the spray booth, and we're giving it a couple of coats of a gloss varnish to make them all wet and slick. So for the next part, I went into matter control on my PC, and I took the open egg variant that I found on Thingiverse, and I decided to incorporate a facehugger coming out. So I thought this would be a nice highlight, eye-catching part to the diorama. So it took a while to print, and it took even longer to clean up, but I'm glad to say that it turned out really nice. Now the only problem was one of the legs didn't form, so I had to glue a piece of metal in its place and then just coat it with super glue. Once you grey prime it or black prime it, you shouldn't be able to tell. So I'm glad to say that it worked a charm, and all's well that ends well. Looks great.
A few moments later.
Okay, so here it is painted. So I thought I'd go ahead and paint this off camera just to save time, but it was basically the exact same paint scheme as I showed you with the closed egg variants. So yeah, back to the base, and we are using the hot glue gun to secure them in position. And I'm also using the same black glue gun to mimic the veins that come out that connect to all the other eggs or to the hive. So it's just a nice little easy trick that goes a long way. And once you add a variety of different eggs, as long as you space them out a little bit, it really does make a diorama come to life. Okay, so now that the base is making good progress, for the next part I need to crack on with the queen. So in the last video I talked about that two little like inner hands were missing. Well, one of them was missing, but I couldn't really replicate the other one. So I went on to Thingiverse and I downloaded a file for parts to an alien queen. And luckily these two hands were in there, so I cut them to scale and sized them, printed them off, and then attached them in place, and took it in the spray booth and give it all a nice coat of matte black, and it worked a charm. You can't tell the difference between the old hands and the new hands. So I'm just spraying the back spines that we straightened out in the first video. And now I'm adding some super glue into the various little holes, and we're going to glue them into position. So to get those parts nice and straight was a lot of work, was quite fiddly, but it is a step that I'm glad that I took, because the vinyl on how the queen was sent to me, they were really warped and really bent, and I just know it would have looked terrible if I left them that way. So yeah, I'm glad I took that extra step. Okay, so for the next part I'm going to go in with some medium to dark blue, and we're going to add a very light dry brush over all the various details and all the little bumps and lumps, and that'll help highlight some of the details where quite a lot of people, when they do an alien model, they tend to just think that the alien or the aliens are just like a matte black or a gloss black, and that's only because most of the scenes you see them in the film are obviously in the shadows, where if you get some like decent images of the actual characters from the films, you can see that they all vary in different shades and tones throughout the franchise. So with Aliens, it seems that the alien queen, or the aliens just in general in Aliens, tend to have like a bluish kind of hue to quite a lot of the details. So yeah, dark to medium blue dry brush is definitely a must, but I wouldn't go too heavy or too crazy, because a little pink does go a long way. And because you still, same again, you don't want to lose those dark undertones as you work. So once all those blue dry brushes were left to dry, for the next part I'm going in with a very light dry brush of some mushroom grey, and same again, this just adds a little bit more highlight to some of the more raised edges. So it's same again, it is a good step to take with some of the aliens. It just makes it look a bit more detailed rather than just having it like a black or like a really dark off blue. So you'll see as I go. And for the next part we're going to go in with some acrylic silver, and I'm going to add the highlights to the various teeth and the fingernails and the toenails to the alien queen. And now all that is done, it's time to go back in the spray booth and give it 2 coats of a nice gloss varnish. Okay, so for the next part of Diorama, we need to go ahead and start laying the foundation for the egg sac, which is what the alien queen uses to create the eggs. So obviously we can't go ahead and we can't model the whole thing because that would make this diorama extremely huge, but we do need to create like the first section, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now. So what I started off with is 1/2 of some expanded foam, which was a cut-off piece from a previous project. So with that being roughly the right size and dimension, I decided to just fill in the other side with more expanding foam, and then we'll cut down the excess.
Eventually.
Okay guys, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it will do the job. So it will take a lot of cleanup, but with a bit of TLC, I think this will work really well. So yeah, so just going in with like a hobby saw kind of cutting knife, and we're going to trim off the excess, and we're going to tidy it up, and we're going to try and make it fit the base. Okay guys, so you can see there, it's a bit of a tight squeeze, but I think it will work really well this. So we've cut like a L-shaped kind of bracket so the alien queen can park her bottom in place, and the main problem is the tail, because we don't really get a good look at where the tail goes in comparison to the sack. So I assume it just lays on top. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit tricky when we get to that stage. But I've cut a groove on the inside because I got the idea that if you turn it round one way, we could probably have a glimpse of what's inside, like an egg being formed, so to speak. I thought that would be a cool Easter egg, no pun intended, which we haven't seen before. So yeah, so now I'm in the spray booth and I'm gonna use some of this stuff, which is like it's like a latex rubber in a can, if that makes any sense. It's supposed to make things that you can paint it, but it's still flexible. You can still move it. Even though this isn't gonna get moved, it just works as like a skin over the expanding foam. So it's just to strengthen it up, I suppose. So first of all, I went in with 2 cans of like a gold colour, and then once it dried, I then went over with a dark brown, which was the same like latex rubber paint. So we left that to dry, and then we can have another test fit. As you can see there, it fits in quite nicely, but there is a bit of a gap around the back seam there, so that'll need filling out later on. So to start things off, I want to go ahead and I want to protect what we've created of the egg sac so far. So I'm going to go over some of this stuff, which is Das air dry modelling clay. So the problem with air dry modelling clay is it takes forever to dry. It takes a couple of days, so you can't really do any more work on that area until it's fully dried. And also it has a tendency to crack. Now if you leave it to dry in a cool environment or a cooler place, it minimises the cracks. But if you like bring it indoors where it's like a quite decent room temperature, that's what dries the clay out faster and makes it crack and break. So if you are going to leave something to dry, I'd recommend just leaving it in a cold shed for like a couple of days, and then that should minimise the crackage, if you like. So yeah, took it off the diorama now, and it's much easier to work with now that I can get to all the areas. So I'll go ahead and speed up the footage because this takes a while to do, but once it's all coated, left to dry, we should have a nice foundation of a alien queen egg sac. Okay, so we can now put it into place, and for the next stage we need to fill out some of that gap that's left at the back. So while the air drying modelling clay is still wet or still moist, it's probably a good opportunity to go in and fill in the gaps with yet more air drying modelling clay, and then it'll all dry at the same rate all together, and it should create it more as one piece and help stick it in place rather than adding wet clay to dry clay, if that makes any sense.
Three days later.
Okay guys, so now that the air dry modelling clay has had a couple of days to dry, we're now going to go in and we're going to fill in some of the gaps or connect it better to the floor and the wall with expanding foam. So this will help create that nice like black cocoonage that leads from the wall to the sack, and also it'll help fill out all the gaps so we don't have to worry about any light shining through later on. So yeah, very important step. Okay guys, after leaving that a couple of hours to fully dry and expand, so now it's rock hard, we're going to go in with some various shades of dark browns and light browns, and we're going to start creating that iconic egg sac that we see in Aliens. Okay, so for the next part, I went ahead and I printed off a smaller version of the same egg, and I thought, how cool would it be if we placed the egg inside the egg sac, so it's like an egg that's being formed. So I painted it some slightly lighter colours to emphasise that it's still being made, I suppose, or it hasn't oxidised with the air around it yet. So just stuck that in place with hot glue, and now I've made the egg sac. I'm making some more that those vines that reach out to connect to the rest of the hive. Same again, just regular hot glue. So for the next part, I went ahead and just got some regular black acrylic, and I decided to paint the edges of the wooden part of the diorama, so it all matches the base and the bottom as well. So I did the top, the sides, and then I flipped it around and I did the back as well. So while that's drying, I thought now's a good opportunity to go in with some gloss varnish and give the egg sac and some of the eggs as well a nice thick coat of gloss varnish to make it nice and wet and slippery. So for the next part, we're going to secure the alien queen in place. So same again, black glue gun sticks to the rescue. So a big blob of it on the back of the cocoon, parked their backside if you like, into place, and hot glued the feet in place. And now, even though my arm's in the way, I'm hot gluing the tail in place. And then the edge of the tail, the spiky bit, that is getting hot glued to that industrial pipe that we made on the right side. So once it all cools down, she'll be rooted in place and she'll be nice and secure. So for the next part, I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to add some UV resin to the inside of the eggs and the outside of the lips of the other eggs, the closed versions. And once these are hardened with UV rays or with a UV torch, they will give a more wet, sleek look rather than just the gloss varnish. So it's a little bit more of a fiddly step, but well worth it in the long run. So, now that we're getting close to the end of the diorama, we need to start making the aliens logo. So I created this in matter control, so just a general rectangle square with like a raised edge, and then just the aliens logo etched in 3D. Then printed it off on filament and just tidying it up at the moment. And then we can take it into the spray booth and we can give it a coating of regular white primer. So now that it's nicely primed, I'm going to start off by painting the letters a nice ice blue from Games Workshop. And once dry, I then went around the edges and painted it all a nice matte black. So left that to dry, and now we can go to the spray booth and we can give it a few coats of clear gloss varnish. So now that it's nice and shiny, we need to go ahead and glue it into place. So I'm going to use a scalpel just to add some very light scratches in place, and that'll help the glue connect to something. And then regular super glue, and then we're going to try and get it slam bang in the middle there, just under the queen, which is a nice eye-catching place to put it. Okay guys, so while the alien queen's in her birthing position, she seems to have these big, massive, huge, like bone-like structures that come out of where her back is, that lead up to some like industrial pipes in and around the area. So we need to incorporate this as well. So the best way that I can think of doing this is just with some regular plastic human bones, which you can usually find in the shops at like Halloween times, but if you're struggling to find some, you can probably get them on like Amazon, etc. So just like a bag of bones, I think they're titled. So just took them to the spray booth, painted them gloss black, and then left them to dry, flipped them over, and then did the underside. And then that is a nice start to making those extra parts. Okay, so some of the other bones were a bit on the big side, so I decided to use these parts instead, which are like the main front part of the arms. I got these from what you call, I think they're called grave poppers or something like that. They're basically just like a skeleton and two arms coming out of the ground. Same again, you see them in Halloween shops all the time. Pretty cheap to buy. So just took the connecting parts off, so obviously the hand off and the part that goes into the ground. And then same again, spray painted them a gloss black, and then just glued them in place, and then worked a load of black glue gun stick over the top as well, just to make it look more like it's like secreted resin rather than just like bone props, I suppose. Okay, so just left the glue to dry, and I believe it's finished.
Dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed this build, or both parts of this build. Me, myself, being a fan of the Alien franchise, I have had a ton of fun working on this, and if you're a fan of the franchise as well, I hope there's been something in these videos that either you've learned or you've incorporated into one of your builds, or you've just had fun watching me build mine, I suppose. So this isn't a commission or anything. This is privately made for my own collection. So this will be going in my display case later this evening, which I'm glad to say. It's been a long time coming. So yeah, so if you've enjoyed this build, please smash that like button and share on Facebook and Twitter, because it helps new people find the YouTube channel, which I'm always appreciative. Thank you for any help. If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future builds. So once again, I'm Francis Gray, and this is the Alien Queen diorama from the epic movie Aliens. I'll see you in the next build.